This is New Brunswick's independent community channel, CHCO-TV. We live in Charlotte County.
Good evening, folks. I'm John Smith, and
I'm Jason Speedy.
And today, as you might have noticed, we've got a new show name. It's What's the Call. We've also got a Facebook page that you can like. It's What's the Call on CHCO-TV. If you like our Facebook page as well, you can also interact during the live show. So if you have any questions or feedback or anything that you want to give us, then certainly post on the page, and we'll be keeping up on that on the show as well. And then you can also call in. Again, the number is 529-8826 if you're local, and then if you're far away or coast to coast, it's 1-855 in front of the 529. So that's our exciting news for the new year.
Yeah, so you better like our page, spread the word, and let's get a little bit of traffic going here on our Facebook page, and hopefully get some people to call in, get some questions going.
With the Facebook page, we're doing a little draw. So for our first 100 likes, those of you who have already liked us, you will be entered in this as well. It's for two tickets to the Charlotte County Aces game. It was donated to us by Kevin down at the Red Herring. So if you, like I said, if you like our page, you can be entered into that draw. So thanks again, Kevin. It's the best pub food in Charlotte County. So if you want to come out and jam some live music on Mondays, they do that. I believe they're watching the hockey game tonight. So
where is the Red Herring?
Downtown Water Street in St. Andrews. Sorry. So
perfect.
Come on down and get some good pub food down there.
And we thank Kevin for his generous donation.
Awesome. Thanks again very much, Kevin. We'll start right in with the football playoff recap, and then maybe a little preview into some of the next teams.
Detroit got screwed, by the way, just so you know.
So we'll start out with that. With the Detroit getting screwed, they ended up losing to Dallas 24-20. It was a very entertaining game. He's referring to the pass interference call, or non-call.
Yeah, well, I mean, one call does not make, the difference completely in a game. But what had happened was late in the fourth quarter, Detroit was about halfway down the field, just about ready to cross into Dallas territory. It was a 3rd and 1 play. Matthew Stafford dropped back, looked for Brandon Pettigrew, tight end on the left side. And what happened was the defender for Dallas basically committed a penalty. Referees threw the flag, but what they did was they picked it up, no call, and
no explanation.
No
explanation.
explanation.
There was no explanation at the time.
No, nothing. So what happened was that Detroit went for it, 4th and 1, didn't get it. Dallas comes down the field, scores touchdown, takes the lead, wins the game. Yeah. I mean, one play doesn't make the game, but it definitely stopped Detroit's momentum and definitely gave,
Dallas the momentum.
Yeah, new breathing room for
and
Dallas.
then even they have released a statement since. The VP of the officiating in the NFL, Blandino, I believe was the name. He said that basically he was okay with them picking it up because the back official, but he said they should have done it different. They should have convened together before he threw the flag.
Yeah.
The closer official had said that it was more face guarding, so he was just blocking him. It didn't warrant a penalty. That was from the closest official who had seen it. Mm-hmm. Then, like I said, upon review, like on the replays and stuff, the VP of officiating had said that there should have at least been a defensive holding because he did grab a hold of the jersey, if not the pass interference. So Detroit definitely didn't get the benefit of the doubt there. But
well, the thing is, and what Detroit Lions fans would have an argument about is that they called that penalty on a similar type play all season long. In watching the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game on Saturday night, that happened 2 or 3 different occasions where it was called, and it just begs the question, why wasn't that rule interpreted? And I guess, if they threw the flag, why didn't they stand behind, the conviction? No. And, like you said, Dean Blandino and Mike Pereira, who also is like the in-game head of officials for Fox there, he had said also that he was a little confused that they picked up the flag and things carried on. And I mean, it was a defensive holding because at the very least, and wide receiver for Dallas, Des Bryant, came onto the field as well without his helmet on, which is an automatic penalty. I've heard that it's sometimes a discretionary call between the referees, but I mean, it was very blatant at that time, and again, it just is another.
It's a playoff game. Like you've got to be, even if it is at the discretion during a playoff game, discretion should be thrown out the window. Really, everything that's a penalty should be called.
Yeah, well, and I see that. I mean, that's the lesser of two evils in my opinion. But I mean, it would definitely, it was just like two calls that maybe probably should have gone against Dallas, didn't, and it's like
And not to throw any fire on the conspiracy, but Dean Blandino is good friends with Jerry Jones.
Yeah, he was partying on a party boat with him there earlier this year with
it. So not that necessarily Blandino had anything to do with the call. But.
No, absolutely not. But Matthew Stafford continues to struggle against winning teams. 0-18 now when facing a team with a winning record
on the road, right?
Yeah, and I mean, and going back to my original point, I mean, Detroit lost the game because they didn't keep the pressure on. I mean, they were up 17-7 at halftime, I do believe, or at least had a 17-7 lead. And I mean, Dallas came back
and they jumped out 14-0 right off the bat.
Yep.
Like they were looking really good. Dallas looked like a little bewildered at first.
Yeah, my pro line ticket was looking bad right from the get-go, and I was rooting for Detroit, but selfishly, I was kind of hoping that Dallas was going to win. So.
And then in even other games, one that kind of took me by surprise was Carolina-Arizona game. I mean, I did expect Carolina to win with the third-string quarterback of Arizona, but how they beat them, like Arizona was held to 78 total yards. That's kick returns, that's receiving, that's running, that's 78 total yards. So,
well, Carolina has a good defensive team. They have for the last 2 or 3 years. But, I mean, Arizona's ineptitude on offense. I mean, there's just no way you're going to win any game, let alone a playoff game on the road.
Well, with your third-string quarterback,
and with, Ryan Lindley he had no chance, right? I mean, he
was kind of set up. Do you think Carolina has any bit of a chance against the Seahawks?
Absolutely. I like Seattle at home, of course. I mean, they've only lost twice in the last 3 years at home. So, I mean, they're definitely heavily favored and with good reason. But Carolina plays them tough. They lost to them earlier this year when playing in Carolina 13-9. They beat Seattle last year also at home. So, I mean, they got a chance. I mean,
if you make the playoffs, you can always have a chance. But.
Yeah, I don't think Cam Newton, he looked pretty beat up towards the tail end of the game against Arizona. So, I think Seattle's going to bring the house, and, they're going to get to him. And
Marshawn Lynch is a beast, too, come playoff time. He's just...
he's one of the best running backs in the game.
A movable object, really.
Yeah. So, I think...
I don't know about 11-point favorites, so I believe is the current line on them is 11-point favorites.
That's right.
I think Carolina will probably play them tighter than that. Just... especially having gained a little bit of momentum, they're probably feeling good about themselves going into this next game, holding the team to 78 yards.
Yeah,
so.
And you touched on what the spread is. Well, that only matters to bookies in Vegas, right? If you win by a point, you win by a point. So, I think Seattle's gonna, I think they're gonna easily beat them. But you never know, right? You just never know.
Then in other games, the Indianapolis game there, I kind of had a brain fart. They played very well. That was Andrew Luck. It's going to set up an awesome matchup between Andrew Luck, the face of the franchise, versus former face of the franchise, Peyton Manning in Denver.
Yeah.
So,
well, I find that the Colts win on Sunday was a little bit hollow. What you were dealing with was Cincinnati didn't have their top two receivers, Jermaine Gresham and A.J. Green, who are legitimate difference makers.
Definitely.
Cincinnati also lost Ray Melaleuga, who is a big-time defensive tackle. He was out early in the game. So, Indy had the benefit also of playing at home. So,
They could have also won that game a lot higher than they did. There was a lot of drop passes by their wide receivers. Like Andrew Luck had a phenomenal game, I think.
Yeah, he played well.
T.Y. Hilton, I think it was. He was targeted 14 times and he made 6 catches and he still finished with over 100 yards. And
I mean, they Reggie Wayne, Dante Moncrief. I mean, they have good tight ends and Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen. I mean, they're going to have a good. They got a shot in Denver, but I mean, again, like we just talked about in Seattle. I mean, you're going to Denver where they have a very good home record. Peyton Manning's had a couple weeks, to rest up and stuff. The defense is gonna be all charged up, ready to get to Andrew Luck.
Denver really hasn't looked as well as I'd have liked them to look going into the playoffs. These last 3 games, Peyton really hasn't stole a game, and they've been relying on the running. Do you think he's hurt?
Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he was banged up. But that 2-week rest maybe is just what the doctor ordered. But Indy wasn't playing well either. I mean, they lost. They got blown out on the road in Dallas, right? 42-7. Andrew Luck was even pulled in that game. I mean, hate to play the favorites all the time, but I mean, I think Denver's gonna,
with Peyton, do you think he needs this postseason, the Super Bowl, to kind of cement his legacy as one of the best quarterbacks of all time?
See, I don't buy into all this, the best of this and that. I know it's a cute story for ESPN, and it is good conversation. I mean, it's a good argument, but Peyton Manning is, one of the top 5 quarterbacks of our generation. I mean, the NFL's been around for a long time, so I don't understand why people just can't be satisfied and just agree. Like, yes, Tom Brady is a great quarterback. Peyton Manning is a great quarterback. Peyton Manning did only win 1 Super Bowl as of now, but I mean, he made another one. Played against a good New Orleans team. Drew Brees, and that team kind of had a little bit of a aura with them. Yeah, you know what I mean, that season. So I mean, they kind of ran into
a good team.
And I mean, good teams lose.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's lost twice in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Nobody ever questions his place in NFL history, and rightfully so. But I mean, just because Peyton Manning's lost, in the Super Bowl and maybe hasn't played very well in the playoffs, I mean, doesn't take
anything away from what
he's done. I mean, he's a great quarterback, and I mean, anybody in the NFL, any players, and those are the opinions that really should matter. They all agree he's a great quarterback.
I find it kind of funny, though, as you and I would both agree, and most football fans would, that Peyton's a better quarterback than Eli, but Eli has more rings. So.
Yeah, well, Trent Dilfer was a quarterback of the Ravens, and I mean, he's routinely mocked as being the worst quarterback that's ever won a Super Bowl. So, but he's got a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and he played well in that game. So I mean,
anything's possible.
Yeah, anything's possible. I mean, I think Peyton Manning's, he's top notch. What more can you say?
And then the Baltimore game, that was a phenomenal game.
Yeah, completely took me by surprise. Yeah, absolutely. Baltimore, in a string of succession, lost on the road to Houston. Case Keenum barely beat Jacksonville at home, or on the road, Blake Bortles.
Yeah,
exactly. Charlie Shaw, who was a quarterback for Cleveland when they barely beat Cleveland at home. I mean, Baltimore just wasn't playing well. But when the lights turn on for the playoffs, Joe Flacco,
he's good. He's been clutch the last few postseasons. I think a lot of credit should go to John Harbaugh as well. He's a phenomenal coach.
Absolutely. He's a very good coach. Yeah, Joe Flacco's 5-0 his last 5 postseason starts, 13 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, he really brings it in the playoffs. But I mean, they also have primetime players that step up in the playoffs, and I mean, every team needs that. But I mean, Terrell Suggs, with probably the best nickname, T-Sizzle, in the NFL. He's primetime player. Elvis Dumerville. On the offense, you got Steve Smith and Torrey Smith, Jacoby Jones with his special teams. I mean, they're just primetime players. And,
they've been there before, too. A lot of their players, like the veterans, have been there before. I think that definitely has an effect on how a team goes into a postseason. Like, once you've won before, once you've lost before, you can kind of...
Well, you have to get over those hurdles, right? And losing is part of winning. Yep. Like, I know a lot of you got to take your lumps before you get the ultimate prize in any sport. I mean, it just very rarely does it just all of a sudden happen.
Well, and even the Oilers had to take their time. Like, that was one of the greatest dynasties in hockey, and they lost to the Islanders in their prime, like when they were getting into their prime. So,
yeah,
like you said, you have to lose to win.
Yeah.
But I think once you've won, it gives you the confidence as well. Like, I've been here before. They score a touchdown on me. No big deal. Like, let's just focus. We've been here before.
Yeah.
But if you've been there before and you've blown, say, a touchdown lead, or you couldn't recover from a touchdown lead, it's like, oh no, here we go again. So then you've got to get through that, I think. So.
Well, you get more familiarity with the situations. I mean, the thing about sports is it comes down to situations. You know, what do you do when this happens, and how do you react when this happens? You know what I mean? So, but I mean, Pittsburgh.
Do you see any changes coming in Pittsburgh next year?
Well, I know Troy Polamalu and James Harrison, who have been defensive stalwarts for them for the last decade plus. You know what I mean? I mean, they're getting long in the tooth. You know, they played hurt a lot. So I mean, maybe there's some change will be there. But I mean, they have very good young offensive weapons. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, who was hurt, and obviously, made a big
impact on
the game, because I mean, when you take away that running game against Baltimore, they can drop back a little bit, and I mean, they have very good coverage on Antonio Brown. Didn't have I know he had a lot of receptions, but he didn't have the breakout game like he usually does. So yeah, when you can kind of fall back and
their defensive line was very good that game as well. Like, they had pressured Ben Roethlisberger a lot.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, Pittsburgh's offensive line notoriously has been bad over the years, so I mean, that wasn't that much of a surprise. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Baltimore was all jacked up; they were ready to play, and I mean,
it sets up for a good matchup next week.
Yeah, division game. Anything can happen like that. So. It definitely matches up very well for next week. You got Baltimore at New England next Saturday at 5:15 Atlantic time, so that's going to be
an awesome matchup.
Yep.
And then the Seattle-Carolina game's the night game, I believe.
That's right. So. That's on next Saturday. So Baltimore goes into New England. Last time they did that, they won, right? So, and then they went and kind of maybe propelled them to win the Super Bowl in 2012. So, I mean, they look good. I mean, they look good, and I mean, I think New England's going to have to be ready to play. Yeah.
Well, Baltimore notoriously plays New England well. New England notoriously plays Baltimore well. Like, it's every game that I've watched between the two clubs has been a good game. So, and then even if you go Joe Flacco, Tom Brady, that's two of the top 5-10 quarterbacks in the league right now, so it's definitely going to be a good matchup.
The thing about New England, what they have to worry about is that their offense has kind of sputtered there the last couple years, or last couple weeks. Losing to Buffalo at home, barely beating the Jets. So it's going to be imperative for them to get off on a good foot quickly, you know what I mean? Have a couple scores early, kind of play with the lead. If they get down, they're familiar with comebacks, right? So, but it would be beneficial for Baltimore to
get the lead early.
Yeah.
Well, and then they're a good defensive team too. If then they rush the passer very well, so if they get the lead early, they can kind of make Tom Brady. Not that really affects Tom Brady too much. He's one of the best at getting it off quick. So
yeah. Well, and Gronkowski, I think, is going to be the difference in that game, right? And But I mean, like I said, I think it's probably imperative for both teams to get out to a good, play with the lead, good start, and make more so for New England just because they've sputtered. But as said,
Baltimore right up until that game as well.
That's right.
It should make for a very interesting game.
Sure.
The Seattle-Carolina game should be a good game. We both agreed that Seattle's more or less the favorites. They've been playing lights out the last month and a half. They probably look like the most dominant team in the NFL going into the playoffs as well. So
yeah, well, and so the only matchup we haven't talked about yet is Dallas at Green Bay next week. What do you think about that?
I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be phenomenal. I think he was hurt, and he's got some rest. I think, like you said, with Peyton Manning, the couple of weeks rest repair time will make a huge difference. And then they're playing in at Lambeau, so Aaron Rodgers is phenomenal at home. He's phenomenal just about anywhere, but he's phenomenal at home as well. So I've got I do have Green Bay coming out on that one.
Yeah, I think Green Bay is going to win as well. it's going to be cold, and it's going to, the Lambeau Field mystique, especially in the playoffs, always is a benefit to Green Bay, obviously. What I think you'll see with Green Bay is they'll move the ball well. Dallas defense really isn't top in the league or anything. I think Green Bay will move the ball, and
it's a matchup of the top two offenses in the league. So
Dallas, how will they adjust to the cold and not playing indoors, basically, you know what I mean? So those will be, a little bit of some of the storylines, right? So
again, guys, if you want in on the show, it's 529-8826, and then if you're not local, it's 1-855-529-8826. You can also talk to us on the Facebook page. It's What's the Call, on CHCO-TV. Was there anything else with the football previews that we haven't touched? We've hit I believe all the teams for the previews.
We kind of alluded to it there a couple weeks ago on our last show there about Black Monday there, just some coaching turnover there. Atlanta Falcons, Buffalo Bills head coach Doug Marrone.
That was an interesting story, with the Doug Marrone opting out of his contract, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think there was a little bit of issue with, I guess, control of the player personnel. He wasn't very much a fan of the Sammy Watkins trade earlier
in the draft.
The draft, and I guess maybe there was some hurt feelings or trust issues, perhaps. And
I heard he was kind of condescending to some people within the organization and the players, and some of them, I guess, butted heads with him. I also read that he was the favorite for the Jets position at first. However, since some of the reports have come out about being not friendly with the players or butting heads or whatever. It's now Don Quinn, I believe, the defensive coordinator of the Seahawks, is now the leading favorite for the
he's
Jets.
a hot property, of course, because Seattle's defense has got the reputation that it has, and if you're the defensive coach, people are going to look to see if they can pluck them from Seattle, right? But Doug Marrone was a coach previously with the Jets, and he, as far as I know, is going to be interviewed for the position. But like you said, they're really that concerned about. They had Rex Ryan there for the last 5 years. You know what I mean? They shouldn't be that concerned with abrasiveness, I guess, per se. But and maybe that was the clause that he had in his contract. He did a good job with Buffalo the last couple years. Winning season and stuff. Maybe he thought grass, greener, and
I have heard
get a little bit more money. Maybe he can go to San Francisco.
Speaking of San Francisco, that Jim Harbaugh, that kind of took me by surprise that he went to Michigan.
Yeah, well, this is alma mater and money talks. I guess those types of things matter, right? So it wasn't that much of a surprise. I would have thought that he would have wanted to stay in the pinnacle of football leagues, which is the NFL, but. I'm sure he'll come back someday. Well,
and it's not like college football, so that's not small of a pinnacle of sports either. I know the NFL is the biggest sports league, but the NCAA football is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's I guess that's my ignorance, being from Charlotte County, New Brunswick, Canada. We don't have the following that in NCAA football. Even NCAA basketball does, right? It's just not the same, and I don't feel that that desire to watch a lot of college football.
Yeah, it is
much like a lot of maybe the Americans don't really feel the need to watch teenagers play
hockey,
junior hockey, right? So it's I think it's very regional. It depends on where you're from.
One of the interesting things, I guess, that I found interesting was some of the top-paying jobs in the U.S. Per state, I guess, is a football coach.
Oh yeah. So
that's or a college football coach. So
well, he just got. Jim Harbaugh just got a 6-year, $48 million contract. That's big time money to be coaching and recruiting.
And then he also gets bonuses for like bowl appearances or for like scholarships.
Oh yeah, and he'll.
Coach of the year.
He seems totally like the type to pimp himself out to any type of marketing, any type of commercials. I'm sure we'll see him doing a commercial for like cat food or something if it pays him enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he definitely has that type.
Do Kind of going back to football a little bit, but with San Francisco, with the Harbaugh, do you see Colin Kaepernick having a bounce back year next year? Like, can you see him playing, or is he kind of?
We'll see. Depends on who the coach is and how their relationship develops.
Yeah.
I mean, I think over the years, I mean, you definitely can see the success of a team depends on the relationship that a quarterback and a head coach has. Maybe things just soured this year, and like I said on last week's show, there's a small window, right? And maybe that just window with their relationship and who they had at that time had closed.
Yeah. And I see Washington is bringing back RG3 and Jay Gruden, or so far confirming to the reports that they're both coming back. So we'll see if they can kind of work together this season.
Yeah.
Gruden, I feel, kind of threw him under the bus a few times, and not that RG3 didn't necessarily deserve it, but I mean, you still, as a young player, I don't feel you should throw him under the bus as much as he did, like just saying certain things and stuff.
Well, here's the thing with the Redskins. RG3 is a talented football player, but he needs to change his attitude because he's such, the owner, Dan Snyder, loves him, and, he feels that he could probably take take off a little bit here and there, not work as hard, not study the playbook, worry about his brand, which is a popular thing nowadays in the sports world. But, and the coach, wants his quarterback to learn the playbook and to develop other skills other than with his legs, which clearly he's not been able to.
His last 3 games, though, he did look very good. The last 3 games for the Redskins, I mean, I won't say very good, but he's looked better than he had all season. So,
but I mean, I think with the Redskins, I mean, I think their problems are deeper than just
their quarterback.
Just those two. I mean, they have no defense. I mean, they got rid of Jim Haslett, who was their defensive coordinator.
Not even just the player makeup. They have organizational issues as well.
It stems even to the team name, right?
That's a chaotic franchise.
Oh, for sure.
I kind of feel bad for a player getting drafted into. In Edmonton. In my opinion, this is kind of one that me and you have talked about before. Players developing. You said with the quarterback and the coach, but how quickly a player can develop with a consistent coach or having the same person there. So
I mean, it takes everybody pulling in the same direction. When other people are, branching off and got their own thing going, or their priorities aren't in line. This is when you see the chaotic and and things like that.
Well, and then not to kind of compare 2 different sports, but the Edmonton Oilers, they've had 6 different coaches in 7 years. I believe the Washington Redskins is kind of the same deal. And look at where both of those franchises are.
Well, Shanahan was there. Mike Shanahan was there for a little while, and Jim Zorn before that. But yeah, I mean, no, your point as well is right. I mean, they had North Turner for a year. They brought Joe Gibbs back. You know what I mean? So it's been a lot of fluctuation.
Yeah. What about with young quarterbacks? Do you see Johnny Manziel getting his gear together? No,
I mean, I think
stopping the partying and.
Well, no, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, he had hosted a party the Friday night before the last game of the season, which led to their best receiver, Josh Gordon, getting suspended for the last game. And I mean, it's just you
got to leave college.
The teams like the Redskins. Well, yes, absolutely. But you see the Redskins and the Browns, and they're at the bottoms of their division, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, they try on these players that aren't necessarily known for being good students. They try on the high risk, high reward.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, you get teams like Philadelphia Eagles with Mark Sanchez. I mean, no, he's not the greatest quarterback, but he tried, and he did what he could to help get the team into the playoffs. And I mean, maybe you aren't getting that type of commitment and effort out of players like Robert Griffin III, and
that have the potential, but they don't have the work.
Yeah. And I mean, it definitely takes work ethic for sure.
If you were Cleveland, would you drop Manziel and Gordon? Or would you kind of?
Well, I think Gordon's going to be on his way out anyway. I mean, he's just provided too immature, and I mean, there comes a time when you got to cut bait, right? I mean, it's with whether it's drug violations, attitude,
drinking,
things like that.
I believe.
Those sorts of things. You got to cut bait sooner than later and move on, right? So,
if you were a GM of another team, would you try and pick him up just because of all the potential?
Well, I mean,
and maybe see if you could straighten him out, or?
Well, I mean, that's a popular popular belief. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's got talent. There's no question about it. But he needs to understand that he needs to change first too, right? So I mean,
he is still young, so we'll give him a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I guess, folks, we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll set up the World Junior Hockey scene. Big game coming on right after the show, so make sure you're all tuned in for that. There was a surprise in the Worlds today, or the World Juniors today, in the bronze medal game, so we'll get to you about that as well.
We're going to have a little discussion about the Baseball Hall of Fame vote as well. That vote is tomorrow to see who gets enshrined in this year's class. And
we'll hit some basketball.
Got some thoughts on that. So, yeah, we'll talk about basketball.
All right. And we'll be back soon, folks.
At Fredericton Nissan, they're proud to say most of their staff have been here for over 20 years. So you know you're dealing with an experienced and trusted team of professionals in both sales and service. Fixing it right the first time. That's what it takes to be a Nissan technician. Drop by Fredericton Nissan at 580 Prospect Street and discover why Nissan is the fastest growing brand in Canada.
And welcome back, folks. Again, I'm John Smith.
I'm Jason Speedy.
We're getting ready to start on the World Junior Hockey Tournament. If you want to give us a call and have an input, or even just bring up something else that we haven't talked about, it's 1-855-529-8826. You can also like and post on our page. It's What's the Call on CHCO-TV. Sorry about that. If you do like our page and you're one of the first 100 likes, you will be entered into a draw for 2 tickets to a Charlotte County Aces game in February. Those tickets were donated to us by Kevin at the Red Herring. So if you also want to enjoy some good pub food tonight down at the hockey game, they're playing the hockey game down there. So it's on Water Street in St. Andrews. Thanks again, Kevin, at the Red Herring. So on to the World Juniors. It's been phenomenal so far. Really
has
good
that been
tournament.
going on?
Yeah, I haven't seen it anywhere.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing going on.
Yeah. Canada's been playing very well.
Yeah, dominating.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, what more can you say? I mean, they're winning games
they've been playing
8-0, 7-1. I mean, they really could have won last night 12-13-1, but the goalie for Slovakia, I mean,
Godlai was
I mean, he was great. And I mean, it was fun to watch. And I mean, it's easy to say when your team that you're rooting for is winning, but I mean, yeah, he was phenomenal last night. I mean, God bless. He did great.
He even received a standing ovation from the Toronto faithful, or the Toronto fans, or the hockey fans at the ACC when he didn't receive the player of the game for the Slovaks. Everybody else in the arena chanted "Godla, Godla." So he came out and he kind of acknowledged the crowd.
Yeah.
With that, though, Slovakia took a little momentum with them and upset the Swedes today.
Yep.
I don't think anybody saw that coming. It's the Slovaks' first medal in 16 years at the World Juniors.
Wow.
So,
yeah, that's great. Good.
The last team that won it would have had Marian Gaborik on it. So
I mean, I definitely would have thought Sweden would have pulled it out today. I mean, when I realized last night that it was going to be Slovakia and Sweden, I mean, I fully thought Sweden was going to have the bronze and Slovakia was going to have,
Sweden must
have a good tournament and whatnot. But I mean, I didn't really think they were going to have much of an hope against Sweden.
Godla again kept them in it. Slovakia scored 2 quick goals in the first period. I think 39 seconds apart within 4 minutes into the game. So they kind of just jumped right out.
And perhaps maybe the loss to Russia for Team Sweden was just that was just the momentum killer. You know what I mean? And just too much air out of the building, for them.
If you're a young player and you've got your hopes on gold, and then you think you've really got the best team to win gold, and then you lose a hard-fought battle, you could call it in.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, as far as tonight goes, how do you think it's going to go? I mean, it's another epic Canada-Russia battle, right?
It is going to be, I think, one of the best games of the tournament. Russia is very skilled. Their goalie's been playing phenomenal.
But they were underdogs against the States and also to Team Sweden. So, maybe they got the momentum in their corner, right?
Yeah.
So.
And then Canada has kind of played a lighter. Not that Slovakia didn't play well or Denmark didn't play well, and they didn't deserve to be there. But if you compare it going into the tournament, USA, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Canada were pretty well. All had gold medal hopefuls.
Yeah.
4 of those teams ended up on the opposite side.
Well,
of the pool.
Canada's always gold medal hopeful, right? I mean,
The same as Russia too.
I
really.
mean, we stand behind the the phrase,
Hockey
if you will, the phrase that, I mean, hockey's, Canada's sport and all that sort of stuff, right? So I mean, it's every year our expectations are very high. It's gold or bust. I mean,
it's been a disappointment the last few years. It's
Yeah,
been
it's
5 years since we've
right.
won a gold and 2 years since we've won a medal. That'll end obviously tonight. We'll either win a gold or a silver. So
Yeah. However, if they do lose tonight, considering how well they've played, and I mean,
It'll be a
really, the
disappointment.
sheer unbelievable disappointment. I mean, the sheer dominance they've shown. I mean, I mean, they have future NHL players up and down their roster. I mean.
they have 3, I believe, that are expected to be picked in the top 20, like that are draft eligible right now or next season, I guess. And then they already have some that have been picked, like Duclair.
Some of them are already in the NHL. And I mean, McDavid.
He's going to be I think with his performance at this World Juniors, as long as he keeps it up, he's kind of cemented himself as the #1 over Jack Eichel. So. Yeah,
well, I mean, for someone like myself who doesn't really particularly pay attention to the junior hockey ranks. I mean, I was aware of Eichel, but I mean, I haven't honestly heard his name once in the whole tournament, right? So, and that happens when your team loses in the quarterfinals,
well,
right?
And then they are 17 and 18 too. So I mean, I think it'd be a little hard sometimes to necessarily step up your game for the first time being in the tournament as well, and then nerves like they're kids. So I think you're going to have more of a, like you said, with momentum. I think kids are going to have more of that momentum shifts in games. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you've been doing it your whole life for 10, 15 years, you kind of, okay, well, they scored. Let's just get back into gear. We've done this before. We've been here before. This is the biggest stage these kids have ever been on. And then for Canada, they're on their home soil as well. So.
Yeah. So what do you think the score is going to be tonight?
I think it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say 4-3 Canada.
Yeah, I was leaning more towards a 5-2, 4-2 score for Canada. So, I mean, I 100% fully believe that they should go out and
Russia's very, very good team, though. And then even if you go back in the last recent years, Russia's beat Canada in the last 4 games in tournaments that have meant something. So, Russia's kind of got our number right now.
Yeah, well, and I mean, they better be ready to play because I mean I know Canada's going to be jacked up to.
Well, and especially in their home crowd.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of keeping with the World Juniors, but steering away from the game. There was a bit of controversy, I guess. Not necessarily controversy, but issues with the tickets. Or not issues, but the tickets were very highly priced. There was, on average, at Montreal, 8,000 seats that were still left to be sold. Mm-hmm. It was $300 a ticket. Mm-hmm. Is that too high?
No, because people are going to pay for them.
Well, not if there is 8,000 seats left.
Then don't pay for them. Don't go to the game.
If they say they had them at 200,
well,
and then would they have sold out those 8,000 seats and made? Because I mean, it has brought up some discussion amongst the IIHF about having a venue between 2 different cities.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean. They want to maximize what they can get, and I mean it's a business, and I think it's a neat strategy to have it in 2 separate venues. I think Montreal and Toronto are, when you ask people on the street,
hockey,
what are the 2 main cities that you think of when it comes to Montreal and Toronto? Yeah. So I think it's good. Now you say that if they had lower ticket prices, would they sell more? Not necessarily so. It doesn't necessarily mean that, right? I mean, I'm sure whoever did the, strategy and research on that would have.
Well, they didn't find as much of an issue at the Toronto. In Toronto, they found more of the issue in Montreal.
Yeah.
So they kind of underestimated the fans in Montreal, I guess, or.
Well,
and then even the attendance for the games that not involving Canada was very low.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I'm a fringe hockey player or a hockey fan, say. Am I going to be more inclined to go watch Sweden, Finland, or Canada, Denmark?
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably going to go to to Canada, Denmark. I mean, there's no, and I mean, you can't fault Canadians for not, necessarily caring what happens in a Denmark-Slovakia game, just for instance, you know what I mean? I mean, it's,
But I mean,
I'm sure in any international tournament, whether it's basketball, baseball, I mean, you're going to see dips in crowds that don't necessarily include the home
team.
country, right?
I do get that, but $300 for World Juniors is a bit high.
Well,
for preliminary rounds. I mean, not necessarily. I can understand it for a medal game, but for a preliminary round, $300 is awfully steep.
Well, but I mean, that goes to my point. Well, then don't pay it and don't complain about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to, in my experience and in my opinion, if you want something bad enough, and if you're able, you have the means, you will do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, a couple years ago, I went to the.
But do you think it's hurting necessarily your common fan that can't really necessarily fork out $300? Like, if you're going with a spouse or something, or kids, that's $1,200 or $600 just in tickets.
Okay, well, that's all relative, because if you go to the movies in St. John, it's $100 a pop on a Friday night too, right? So I mean, you pick and choose where you want to spend your money. Like I was going to say, a couple years ago, went down to the 2013 ALCS, Boston, Detroit. I was there for the David Ortiz, Grand Slam. Me and my friends paid a couple $100 American for those tickets. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. I would have paid more.
Yeah.
Went down to opening day this year, $350 for okay tickets.
Yeah.
The experience.
I do get that, but
and that's what you're paying for. I mean, in the end, it's just a game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be there and be part of what's going on, you'll pay for it. It's just like if you're going to a concert.
Yeah.
I mean, some people pay hundreds of dollars to go to a Nickelback concert. I mean, it happens, right? So I mean, if you want it bad enough, you'll pay it. I understand. I mean, yes. I mean, it's easy to say when you only have to worry about yourself to afford the cost of a ticket, but I'm sure they would have had deals or packages that would have been, relaxing in the price to families of
one of the
four
things,
or
I
whatever.
guess, with the packages is where it was split venues. It was you get a ticket in Montreal and then you get a ticket in Toronto or something,
Right.
and that was a couple hundred kilometers away. So it was kind of
that
threw off the
that I guess if that is that's the case, then maybe that's something that could be revisited. But I mean.
As far as the tournament went, it's been a phenomenal tournament, though. Like, Canada's dominated, as we've stated, and then all the games were really good. Like that Sweden-Finland game in the quarters, that was one of the best games I've watched. So Russia-USA was phenomenal.
Sure.
Even like in the prelims, when Denmark played Russia, they played them very hard, and so I mean, it's been a good World Juniors.
The other thing about you want to increase the, I guess maximize what you can earn, right? The way they kind of estimated it was going to bring in about $20 million, all told. So 50% of that goes back into Hockey Canada, 35% goes to the Canadian Hockey League, and 15% goes to minor hockey and admin fees and stuff like that. So, I mean, get as much money as you can, I guess. So, I mean, So I see what your point is, lesser ticket cost with that, but I mean, maybe not either, right? So maybe that's lost revenue if they did.
Yeah, because I mean, 10 tickets at $200 is worth more. 10 tickets at $200 is worth more than 15 at $100. So I can see it there. There is a very happy medium. It's just $300 for World Juniors prelim.
Would you pay $300 to go watch gold medal game tonight?
Yes, I would.
Well, yeah, see,
I'd pay $500 for a gold
there
medal
you go.
game.
And
it's the preliminary games where it didn't really mean much. I found $300 was a bit steep. I mean, they don't mean anything other than seating. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
And now, other than that, I mean, folks, watch the game tonight. It's going to be a heck of a game, Canada versus Russia.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we can't tell you that you already know now. I'm sure, everyone's pretty much been glued to it over the last couple of weeks, right? So yeah.
Other than that, tune in to that. We're going to move on to the Baseball Hall of Fame and what we think who's getting in, how the voting should go, and if there's any omissions or going to be any omissions, which we know there is going to be, of players or candidates that should be in.
Well, let me just start out by saying I think the Hall of Fame voting is a complete farce. It is just a joke. To give the power and, basically to baseball writers who, there's just no way that they can't have biases. There's no way that they don't know everything what it takes. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, professional baseball player or anything like that, or even know what that's all about. But when you have some of the players who are in the Hall of Fame in recent years and who aren't, I mean,
it's not right.
It's just no. I mean, you can't tell me that Greg Maddux last year wasn't 100% like surefire Hall of Famer, but he wasn't. You know what I mean? And this has been going on for years. Joe DiMaggio and Yogi Berra, who are icons for the New York Yankees baseball history, it took them 3 times on the ballot to get in. That's ridiculous.
How would you like to see the voting go?
Well, I mean, I mean, just for first timers this year alone, I mean, to me, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, and John Smoltz there's no question. There is no question. And I know, like, Roberto Alomar, who I wasn't a big fan of. I mean, he's a great player. I wasn't a big fan of him. But I know he was kept out on his first year of eligibility just because he spit in the umpire's face back when he was with Baltimore. The writers have too much, you know, too much say and too much power.
Who would you like to vote for? Or, like, how would you like the voting process to go? Like, who would you
well, I mean, I think
the GMs, the players, people that are already into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think if you're going to give fans say on, like, things such as the All-Star voting, right? I think it's only, I mean, I don't know how, and this is something that would obviously need to be developed, but I mean, give the fans a say, because they're the ones that are supporting the game. I mean, without the fans paying the money for the hot dogs and the tickets and the jerseys and all this sort of stuff, you don't have a game.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? So give them a little bit of a say. Now, as far as these writers go, I understand they traveling with the teams. They've been there for years, such as, you know, I get that. And I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't have a say, but just because they think somebody is Hall worthy or not based on their stats and their off the field, you know, persona and how they deal with them, as, you know, were they accessible when they play it or not? You know, can I get a good soundbite out of them? Are they going to make my job easier? Like, it's just a complete joke to me, just a complete joke, and it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, you get players like so. I mean, like I just said, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, John Smoltz, they're surefire Hall of Famers. Anybody that watches the game in the last 20 years that have watched their careers, I don't see how you could argue against it.
Well, no, like Randy Johnson was pretty well unhittable for years. Pedro Martinez was pretty well unhittable for years, and then even bringing the World Series, like.
Well, I mean, I could go on and on about what Pedro and Randy Johnson both were, and John Smoltz was no slouch. But I can guarantee you that neither one of them will get 100% of the vote tomorrow, which, I mean, it's, like I said, it's a joke. I mean, I think I've made my point very clear. Now, Craig Biggio last year
missed it by 2 votes.
Missed it by 2 votes, and afterwards, a writer had come out and said that he purposefully did not want to vote for him because, you know, didn't think that he, you know, but I mean, and that's his prerogative, I guess. But I mean, to leave him off your ballot when you get 10 people to vote for, like, come on, like, what are you trying?
He's deserving. He's deserving of the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, he's a multiple-time All-Star. He was
over 3,000 hits.
Over 3,000 hits. You know, he was an All-Star player at 3 separate positions. You can't name anybody else at catcher, center field, and second base. I mean, that's just unheard of, right? I mean, it's true. So other guys, like, I would consider, you know, I mean, Jeff Bagwell was a feared hitter all through the 90s. Yeah. I know, and just like Mike Piazza has been linked to steroids.
I'd still put Bonds on. I'd still vote Bonds and Clemens.
But Bagwell was, you know, his stats are unreal. He's never been, you know, it's never been proven that he was ever took performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, he made 1 World Series. He was one of the most feared hitters through the 90s. I mean, and that's, you can't tell me that's not something to be considered. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like you said, Bonds, Clemens, like, and I know there's a popular sentiment, you know, put it on their plaque, you know.
Did steroids.
Accused, allegedly was, you know, did performance-enhancing drugs, but
I mean, but he's still the home run leader, regardless if he used performance-enhancing drugs. How can you not have your home run leader in the Hall of Fame if you're still going to keep him, like, you're not going to take away the home run leader from him, then he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to take that stigma away from him that he's the all-time leader in home runs, even though he did PEDs, then he deserves in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, he was a 7-time MVP. I mean, there's nobody else that's been 7-time MVP. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, what he did on the baseball field is pretty much unrivaled. I mean, he was 500 home runs, 500 stolen bases. Mike Trout currently might have a chance to do that someday, but there isn't going to be another player. Just the way that I guess you can see aspects of the game coming back with the reliability on speed a little bit more than I guess through the 90s and early thousands, but that type of feat will probably not be matched. And I mean, he changed the game, and so this goes back to my back to the point about the writers. So McGuire and Sosa, now I don't feel that they're Hall of Fame worthy, and I don't think they're Hall of Fame worthy even with the home run numbers. I just don't, because they didn't transcend the game like a Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens did, right? So
McGuire chased for the home run.
So they turned a blind eye when there's no way they didn't know things were going on. I mean, to the layperson like myself who was just watching it on TV and relied on the sports writers to give us our information accurately and truthfully, we just thought, oh my God, look how big he is. I mean, he's just be working out of the gym, right? You know what I mean? That's just that's what the layperson would have thought. It was up to the writers to accurately and truthfully report on what they were seeing, what their suspicions were, but there was never anything. So now they want to get all high and mighty and, condemn these people for, and they help.
And they knew.
I mean, I would have to admit that they, or have to think that they knew something. They just had to have. Well, if not, what are you doing?
I think myself, Major League Baseball covered most of that up. Like they've had to have known that there was something going on when a player goes from hitting 18 home runs in a season to the next year hitting over 40.
It was good for business, my man.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. And then once it come out, oh well, no, we didn't know anything about that. They were just doing it on their own. But they covered up for them. They were bringing in the money. Like I said, that Mark McGuire chase for the home runs, that captivated a nation. There was so many people tuned in just to see if he'd hit the home runs.
For sure. Other guys, I know Kurt Schilling.
His playoffs alone almost deserve to make him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to talk about the bloody sock and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I think just on his abilities on the ball field and what he did, I mean, he 3-time World Series champ, 11-2 in the playoffs. I mean, he was a gamer. I know, non-Red Sox fans will, kind of mock and laugh.
I'm not a Red Sox fan, so and I'll give him his due credit.
And I get that about the bloody sock, which he's most known for now. Yeah. But I mean, he was a stud on the Diamondbacks when they won the World Series against the Yankees. And I mean, that was a very good Yankees team that they beat. And without him and Randy Johnson, Arizona has no chance. You know what I mean? Like, they heavily relied on them. So, I mean, I think he should be considered as well. Maybe not this year. I see him getting in later on down the road. Mike Piazza, most home runs ever as a catcher. Like I had alluded to earlier, he was linked to PEDs, but he's never been proven. So,
but has Clemens been proven yet?
Well, no. I mean, the American justice system tried really hard to get him on it, but they never did. So, I mean, he's just kind of guilty in the court of public opinion, right? I mean,
and I very much disagree with what they did, like in harassing Bonds and Clemens. They spent millions of dollars in taxpayers' money to find out if these guys lied about using performance-enhancing drugs. We know they did. It doesn't take. They can deny it all they want, but I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science. We don't need you to prove it with a piece of paper saying yes, they lied to us on and spending millions of taxpayers.
Well,
I think going dragging it on for years and years. If anything, Bonds and Clemens should be suing them for defamation. They're just running their name through the mud.
Well, yeah, and this is kind of a different conversation, but I think in the American justice system when they're lied to or kind of made to
look silly,
that they didn't do their job, they will come after you because they have that pride and that arrogance about it, right? So I mean, and you can see that in not just in this case or anything, but across the American justice system. I mean, I think that's just the attitude that it has. So.
It just really, as a casual baseball fan, I'm a baseball fan, but I'm not a hardcore baseball fan. That just ruined a lot of it for me. It was everything that you heard for years and years was Barry Bonds' trial, Roger Clemens' trial, Roger Clemens denies, Barry Bonds denies, and it's just just leave it be. We know they deny, we know you think they did, whatever.
Yeah. And so back to your question, do a weighted vote, if you will. Have the fans. I'm not saying the writers don't have a say, they do. But yeah, everybody who's alive that's in the Hall of Fame definitely should.
Yeah.
And I know they have a committee that does vote on that. But I mean, everybody from who was inducted last year to whoever was inducted in 1963 who's still alive, you know what I mean, gets a vote, and they tally those up.
And
as far as
what
current
about regular players, like current players on rosters?
Well, I don't think necessarily players, because again, I think they would have biases. But I mean, if you can, I guess come up with a committee of say 15 ex-general managers, ex-owners, ex-managers who, aren't affiliated with any team.
Yeah.
Do a little bit of a weighted, vote that way too. So yeah.
Who do you have getting in this year?
Well, I mean, I see Biggio, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, and I would say John Smoltz. I mean, as of a couple years ago, nobody got in. Last year, 3 got in. So I think it's only. I mean, we'll see. But I mean, I would say those 4 should be surefire bets.
And then, was there anything else you want to touch on with baseball, or?
Well, I found it interesting that with the turn of the new year, John Gibbons automatically had his contract for 2016 guaranteed, if you will. So this kind of protected him from being a lame duck if the Blue Jays weren't doing what they envisioned, and you know what I mean. So interesting contract. I mean, I don't think that's a very that's a precedent in as far as contracts for baseball managers. But hey, good on him. That was a good. That's a good deal for him.
I like that as if I was going for a coach or a manager or something, I'd try and get something like that into my contract where.
Yeah, John Gibbons.
Yeah, well, I know, but I mean, like if I was to get that, I'd
maybe
try
Joe Torre or like Terry Francona,
a
multiple World Series winner, but John Gibbons. I mean, really,
his agent must be good.
Yeah, his agent must be good. But I mean, really, what has he done to warrant that type of sweetheart deal?
Not much. He's been a beloved manager. Like we kind of liked him, but other than that, he hasn't really won us anything. He's been, other than that. But,
yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I had to get my regular bi-weekly Blue Jay jab in there. Yeah. So anyway,
we'll see.
I got it in. Thank you.
I see that they're interested in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes. He's only 15 or 16, I think, right now. So anyway, thanks for watching, folks. We'll catch you again in 2 weeks. And if you like our page on Facebook, it's What's the Call on CHCO-TV. You'll be entered in the first 100 likes. Will be entered into a draw for 2 Charlotte County Aces games. The game is in February, 2 tickets to a game. And the game is in February. We'll get to you on the later dates at the end.
Go Canada.